Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
As we close in on the kickoff to the 2014 season, preseason polls are beginning to come out. Alabama will start the season ranked second in the AP poll. It's the 5th year in a row the Tide has been ranked first or second in that poll, and the 6th consecutive year they've been ranked in the top 5 by the Associated Press. And good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. Diet Pepsi tonight. Love that sound. Love that taste. Check out some Diet Pepsi the next time you're at your local grocery store. Rodney, as we get closer to the regular season kickoff, we're getting closer and closer to knowing who's ready to make an impact in the 2014 season. One way coaches evaluate that is by the scrimmages. The Crimson Tide held their second scrimmage of the fall on Saturday, and Nick Saban didn't seem overjoyed, but he also didn't seem terribly disappointed either. One thing he did emphasize to the media after the scrimmage was that this team is still in the early stages of figuring out its identity.
Everybody wants to be the beast. Everybody wants to be number one. But until they got to do what the beast got to do to be a beast, then it all changes. All right, so that's going to be the difference in this team. You know, I'm sure they all want to be good. They going to go do what they have to do to be good. You know, that'll be the test. And that means you can play with your A game on a consistent basis. You play to a high standard, and you can do it on a consistent basis. And, you know, that's certainly what we want our team to be able to do.
All right, here are the statistics that were issued by the university following the scrimmage on Saturday. Anything jump off the page there to you?
Well, I think once again, you look at Kenyon Drake, Gary, he had he was kind of versatile last week in the first scrimmage. You know, he had 68 yards rushing, I think, and another 70 or so pass receiving. There you see he had another big day catching the ball, had a 65-yard touchdown reception in the game. You look at Ardarius Stewart, we've talked about him, the redshirt freshman out of Fultondale. Of course, Alabama loaded at wide receiver, but Stewart's a guy that's really, stepping up. Trey DePriest, been banged up, with that knee, but, he slowly started coming back last week. He had a big, and I think it was really good to see his performance with a big scrimmage, 7 tackles. You saw Dylan Lee had 6, and, so again, I think when you look at the defense, I think they have a lot of young talent.
Just your take on Coach Saban's comments after the scrimmage. What did you read into them, if anything?
Well, I just thought, the message was, Gary, part of it, when you talk about the offensive side of it, first of all, I think you have to remember that this was a scrimmage that really wasn't necessarily Alabama doing what they're going to do offensively. I think they spent a lot of time working on the passing game. They had some guys injured, too, on the offensive line. Brian Vogler, the tight end, was out. So I think when you really look at it, they were kind of limited, kind of like the defense had been, with all the guys that the defense had been missing the first couple of weeks. And, they've got most of those guys back. Of course, Ashawn Robinson will be back on the defensive line here soon this week. But, again, I think that one of the things he really talked about was the fact that the offensive line, even though they did have some guys injured, they really need to get a little bit more physical. And I think that Dominic Jackson, once he gets back, and Leon Brown, who's back now, I think those two guys, once they kind of work in, maybe we can, get some of that alleviated.
And, of course, one position that's always interesting to the fans and continues to be is that of the quarterback position. Coach Saban continued to say that there's not really any separation at all between Blake Sims and Jacob Coker. He said there were some explosive plays in the scrimmage, receivers making some plays, running backs making some plays, but at the end of the day, if one quarterback is ahead of the other, Coach Saban really didn't let on.
I do think Blake probably is playing a little faster, right now. Been in the system longer, has a better understanding, has a little bit more rhythm. I think sometimes, Jake is still trying to feel his way, and he made some real significant strides in practice this week and really had some really good practices. So, that's still going to be a competitive situation. And, until somebody clearly wins the job, we're not going to make a decision.
Some other updates, mainly in terms of injured players. Several Crimson Tiders were either held out of the scrimmage are played a little bit dinged up. Most of these guys are back at practice this week, and in terms of the season opener against West Virginia, Rodney, it looks like everybody will pretty much be able to go.
Sure does. Off that list, the only two would be Ashawn Robinson and Dominic Jackson that I've saw that, aren't back. Now, Geno Smith's been limited a little bit at the safety spot still, but he's back. He is dressed out. He is, going through practices. And, but I think the Alabama right now, assuming nothing else happens, before the season starts, Gary certainly should be healthy.
All right, stepping away from football for just a moment, I had an opportunity recently to speak with the Director of Athletics at the University of Alabama, Bill Battle, about the state of the program. Among other things, he was, open to talking about a number of subjects as he was the guest speaker at the Tuscaloosa County chapter of the Alabama Alumni Association kickoff party last week. I asked him about autonomy, the Power 5 conferences doing their own thing, and what it means for the future of college football.
All we want to do is get like schools to be able to vote on their legislation that benefits their student athletes in the ways that they can afford and the way that they best see fit. And that's the whole point. It's not to be more competitive. It's not to widen any gap. It's to be able to do some things that we haven't been able to do in taking care of our student athletes.
Coach Battle also got up and close and personal with Big Al and the cheerleaders, which always is a good photo opportunity. Much more coming up on Tider Insider TV, including a sneak preview of how the $1 Million Band is sounding as we approach kickoff. Plus, the Tide had 2 verbal commitments pledged elsewhere over the weekend. We'll break it down and what it means for recruiting going forward. All that and more coming up after the break. We'll also be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. There's the phone number, the email, and of course, hashtag Tider Insider TV if you want to send us a tweet. More of the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV, coming up after the break. Rehearsing and getting ready for kickoff. We were out at practice this morning and asked a couple of the drum majors how pumped they are as we approach the start of the 2014 season.
You're looking at 416 of the biggest Alabama football fans out there, so we really we live for our game day experience, and it's just absolutely incredible.
The first time we get to march in for a home game with the pregame tune going on in the background, everyone just from then on, it's a reward from there.
The halftime theme for the opener is Let's Dance, featuring Dancing Queen, Dancing in the Moonlight, Time Warp, and Rodney's favorite from Farrell, Williams, Happy.
What's that?
I need to hear that one right now.
How did it become my favorite?
Because you're happy.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Right?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
good point.
you walk around happy all the time.
So
all
do you.
Yeah, I'll
So
try.
do you.
It was an interesting weekend for the 2015 and 16 Alabama commitment list. 2 players, both high-profile, decommitted from the Crimson Tide, defensive players, and pledged to other SEC schools. Rodney, let's first talk about 2015 commitment. Jonathan Ledbetter, defensive end out of Tucker, Georgia. Not a surprise. You expected it for some time. His brother, a basketball player that hasn't played football since the 9th grade, recently given a scholarship at Georgia for this season. So I guess it was only a matter of time on Ledbetter, but he is a really fine player.
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't commit earlier. And yeah, he is an excellent player, Gary, top-notch player, defensive lineman, and those are hard to find. But, again, that's kind of what you figured would happen once they offered his brother the scholarship. And his brother was a former, you may have mentioned, a small school college basketball player, and recently decided he wanted to give football a try, so Georgia gave him a scholarship, and that certainly helped sway Jonathan's decision. As far as Benito Jones, the defensive lineman from Wayne County in Waynesboro, Mississippi, Gary, he's a 2016 player, only a rising junior this year. And, I'm going to say this. I know a lot of people talk about these Mississippi kids. They flip to Ole Miss, and they're hard to get out of the state of Mississippi, whether it's Ole Miss or Mississippi State, and that's true. But I really thought that Benito Jones, who's been a longtime Alabama fan, his parents are really strong Alabama, or have been. I really thought that, this guy would probably stick. And after talking to his high school coach at one point, I was even more convinced of that. But, Gary, it's just kind of one of those things. And I'll say this, I'm not sure that this one's completely over with just yet.
Well, it is 2016 before he can sign out of Waynesboro, Mississippi. Athletic, fast twitch defensive lineman. So, yeah, still a long way to go. But nonetheless, Alabama would have liked to have kept him committed. He said after he visited Alabama and committed, that was going to be it. And then, lo and behold, he quickly switches to Ole Miss. So we'll see what happens with Benito Jones. Well, we have a chance to step away from football for a moment. We did that today over at the Cypress Inn here in Tuscaloosa. Alabama held its fall sports media luncheon. Coaches and players from soccer, volleyball, tennis, track and field and cross country, rowing and swimming and diving met with reporters. The volleyball team put together a season to remember a year ago, and they're looking to go even further this year.
We're excited about things. I mean, we bring back basically a team intact that, tied a school record for victories and finished 4th in the league. And, we expect even better things. We brought in 8 freshmen to go with that group, and one transfer and 7 freshmen. And, we're excited about the fact that probably 2 or 3 of those kids are going to contribute to this season.
The season for Alabama starts next Friday in St. Louis at the Marsha E. Hamilton Classic. More to come on Tider Insider TV. Next up, we'll take a look back to the former Tide stars that are starring on the NFL gridirons now, and a former LSU quarterback who doesn't have nice words for Alabama. And next, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. There's the information on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us, TITV@WVUATV.com, or reach out to us on Twitter, #Tider Insider TV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider Television will return after this. This past weekend was a big one in the NFL for ex-Crimson Tiders. Eddie Lacy had a nice game against the Rams, as did his teammates, HaHa Clinton-Dix and Adrian Hubbard. Both of those guys recorded sacks for the Packers. But how about Courtney Upshaw? He outdid them all for the Ravens with the old scoop and score. Upshaw getting into the end zone early against the Cowboys. I'll tell you something, he is going to have a heck of a season, does a lot of different things for the Ravens. And we all remember Zach Mettenberger from LSU. When we last heard from him, a Tide fan was allegedly punching him in the face at a nightclub in Nashville. Now Vinny Sunseri is adding insult to injury. And this isn't even alleged. We see it right there on your screen. The pick against Mettenberger for the Saints against the Titans, and the third-string quarterback commented on his latest run-in with Alabama.
It went right to Vinny Sunseri of all people, freaking Alabama.
I only played him once because I was injured last year when we played him. But everybody out there was kind of playing with kind of a chip on their shoulders as rookies. We were trying to make a statement.
Sunseri doing all he can to make that Saints roster, and that's certainly a step in the right direction. Rodney, I know you were biting at the bit there to say something about Courtney Upshaw and the kind of football player he is.
Yeah, he just has that penchant here. You see him scoop and score. You remember the first game he really started, I think, was against, was it Kentucky in 2009 season, and Alabama was a little bit thin. Had some injuries at linebacker.
Big play in that right before
caught
halftime.
That ball that popped up and ran it in for a touchdown. He's just a playmaker.
Playmaker, no doubt about it. All right, it's time to head to the Med Center hotline. First up, John Michael in Moundville. John Michael, I understand you want to talk about Lane Kiffin. How are you?
Hey, y'all.
Very well.
Yeah, I was wanting to know how y'all think Alabama's offense will be under Lane Kiffin.
Well, John Michael, I mean, we're going to start finding out here in about, 10 days, 12 days, whatever it is, when the Alabama kicks off against West Virginia. I think, one of the keys is going to be the offensive line and how it develops. I think Alabama's still, kind of looking to solidify things there. Of course, they're still with a quarterback in terms of experience, don't have much of that. So, it's kind of, Gary, it's hard to really say, make a prediction on the offense this year. I'll say this, if the offensive line comes around, strong blocking in terms of running game, you establish that with those 3 running backs, they could be hard to stop.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing. We know that. The proof is in the pudding. All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk to Joseph. Joseph, what's going on?
All right, what's up, Gary? What's up, partner?
All right, partner, what you got?
Okay, I think this I'm looking. Okay, who would y'all say was a tougher team between the '61 national championship team, or would you say the '66 when you won with the missing the ring?
Oh, Joseph, I was alive for the '66 one. I hadn't quite made it around for '61. That '61 team defensively, I mean, they were unbelievable. And then their '66, Alabama was going for the three-peat. They started out, coming off back-to-back national championships, went undefeated, did all they could do and didn't win it. So, I mean, Notre Dame and Michigan State tied, and Notre Dame got the national championship in '66. I don't know. I mean, they were both great football teams. The '64 team was good. The '65 team was good. I mean, that's when Coach Bryant got here and established this program, and they were all nasty. I don't know who was better. I would say probably in Alabama lore, the '66 is well known because it did not get the championship, but '61 was Coach Bryant's first national championship.
Yeah,
so
I think
that one was special.
Sentimentally, I think that's certainly one of the great teams of all time, and obviously they were a great team, period. But the '66 team, that's kind of one of those things that people continue to talk about, how Michigan State and Notre Dame tied, and they shared the national championship that year. Alabama was 11-0 undefeated, as you mentioned, Gary. They beat Nebraska at the end of the year handily. Probably, should have been the national champions. They probably should have won 3 in a row. But, no team's ever done that, really, in the modern era. I guess, Minnesota did it in the early 30s, but Alabama's almost done it 2 or 3 times, actually.
So could have done it 77, 78, 79.
Yep.
Could almost did it last year. All right, let's get a tweet in from Shane Dowdle wants to know, compared to last year's offense and defensive line, how does this year's look? And, I think, Shane, that both the lines of scrimmage are going to be improved for Alabama. Rodney, your thoughts?
Well, I think there's a good chance. I mean, you look at the offensive line, I think if they can get the right guard situation, whether it's Leon Brown or Dominic Jackson or Shank Taylor, makes a run here late in camp, we'll see. But if they can get that, and if Cameron Robinson starts to develop, I think, as time goes on, I think Cameron Robinson's going to be an outstanding player at left tackle, but he is a true freshman. So if they can kind of get those guys going, I think it has a chance to be better than last year. I think when you look at the defensive line, I certainly think it has a chance to be better. You got Dalvin Tomlinson back, Ashawn Robinson and Jonathan Allen they're a year older each, and I think they're going to be outstanding this year. With the addition of DJ Petway, Jaron Reed, I think Josh Frazier, even the true freshman, at possibly contributing at nose guard. I just think they're deep, and there's some other guys that we hadn't mentioned. So I think they're really deep and they're really talented. I think they're going to be better on the defensive line, and I think there's a good chance Alabama, I know Alabama fans want to hear this, I think they're going to be better in terms of pass rushing. So.
All right, thanks for that tweet. And coming up, more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information on your screen is coming up, 205-348-9882. The email address and the Twitter handle are there as well. We'll be right back with more Tider Insider TV right after this. Stay with us. Another nice honor for Alabama softball coach Patrick Murphy. He was inducted into the Central Alabama ASA Hall of Fame this past weekend. He was part of a 10-member class. He just wrapped up a national runner-up finish this season with the Tide's 10th consecutive finish in the top 10. That is consistency. All right, let's go back to the Med Center hotline and talk with Don in Gordo. Hey, Don, how are you?
How are you?
Very well. What you got for us?
I want to know who their new field goal kicker is and how accurate he is on long distance and who the center is.
Okay, you talking about the snapper or the center? You talking about the snapper?
The snapper,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Rod.
Well, Cole Mazza is back this year. He's a sophomore, had a really good season last year as the snapper. And the place kicker's Adam Griffith. And Adam really had a great scrimmage. I think he was 5 for 5. He had 3 kicks over 40. He had one at 50 yards. It would have probably been good, they say, from 55 plus. So I've always said I think Adam Griffith has great leg talent, Gary. It's just a matter of him, gaining some confidence. And apparently, it's kind of coming around.
All right, thanks for that phone call, Don. Let's go over to Anniston and talk with our buddy Harold. Hey, Harold, what's going on, man?
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Well.
Hey, I was wondering about one of the linebackers we had suspended. I think his name is Kim. I saw him in the AJ game, man. He had a great game. I was wondering when he's coming off suspension.
All right, Tim Williams is who you're talking about, Harold. They say no news is good news, Rodney, except when you're talking about a suspension. No news is probably not good news in this case.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask about him, Harold, and what his status is in terms of when he'll come back, and we really don't know. I mean, all we know is that, he's been suspended indefinitely, and we really won't know anything until Coach Saban addresses that.
All right, we'll keep you updated, though. As soon as we hear something, you will hear something from us. So let's take one more email. BJ tells me we've got another one ready to go. From Chris in Hueytown, how many true freshmen do you anticipate seeing significant playing time in the opener? Always a tough question, but always there are several, Roddy, that we see right off the bat, at least on special teams, if nothing else.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Gary. I think that's a good point about special teams. There's Cameron Robinson. He'll probably start at left tackle. We know that. I think, you know, speaking of special teams, J.K. Scott, he'll certainly be the punter, it appears. There's Marlon Humphrey. I think there's a good chance he's going to play. Tony Brown is another defensive back I think will play, possibly on the offensive line. I don't know that he'll play in the first game or if he'll play, but Ross Pierschbacker's a guy that certainly, you know, maybe on the two deep. Cameron Sims is a freshman wide receiver who, you know, could possibly play. On the defensive side, you have Rashawn Evans at linebacker, Deshaun Hand, Sean Dion Hamilton. You know, several guys, Gary, that could play. We mentioned Marlon and Tony Brown. So, you know, again, they may not all play in the first game, but I think most of those guys will play as time goes on.
All right, thanks for the phone calls. We're back in a minute with the Ice Bucket Challenge. Nick Saban and the whole team doing it. Plus, if you forgot to catch the show live tonight, you just tuned it in, you can catch a replay at 10:30 or it'll be available later on our website, WVUATV.com. We'll be right back. Alabama soccer kicks its season off this Friday night against Kennesaw State. Check your programs because Abby Lutzenkirchen will be changing her number from 33 to 43 to honor her late brother Philip, a former Auburn football tight end who was killed in an automobile accident earlier this summer. Great gesture on her part. We will keep an eye out for her. All right, that is going to wrap it up for this week's program. We want to thank the Locker Room for providing us with original elephant wear. Remember, the Locker Room is a Tuscaloosa tradition since 1964. Check out their line of original elephant wear located on the University Strip or online. And you can catch a replay of tonight's show, as we said, at 10:30 or on our website, WVUATV.com. And before we go, this is earlier this afternoon, following practice, Alabama's football team led by Nick Saban took part in the AOS Ice Bucket Challenge, as Saban pointed out, at a disease affecting ex-Alabama football star Kevin Turner. Saban then challenged West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, Mark Ingram, Will Muschamp, and Paul Feinbaum to do the challenge. Great video for a great cause. Thanks for watching Tider Insider TV. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night, everybody.